Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Medicine Hat Sport and Event Council Stakeholder Meeting. My name's Trevor Moore. I will be the MC tonight, piloting the agenda. We've got a fun panel discussion that'll take place both live and via Zoom with a few people here this evening. We need to start the night going through some of the logistics of the evening because this is the world we live in today. It's important that we follow the guidelines set out by the Esplanade in the way of markings on the floors, the entrances, the exits. If you have any symptoms or you traveled outside of Canada or come in contact with a confirmed case or are waiting on results from COVID-19 tests, we ask that you please leave the theater now. And you can join us virtually on the Facebook live stream as well as later on the YouTube channel, which will give you a chance to review this information tonight here as well anyway. So as I mentioned, it will be live streamed on YouTube. Masks are not required, but because we are indoor, it is suggested that you consider wearing one. Please respect the space of the people around you. And there are some masks available as well as hand sanitizing stations throughout the facility. Please take advantage of using those on your way in and out of the theater. Make sure we maintain social distancing. This includes no hugging or shaking hands, etc. And if you have a cough or sneeze, please do so into your arm. Following the event, there'll be an opportunity to answer or ask some questions. And if time permits, we'll have the Q&A with the panelists up on the floor here. And when the meeting is over, please grab a goodie bag on your way out. Typically, they would have finger food and some refreshments, but because of the environment, again, we will be dealing with just handing out goodie bags. So make sure you grab yours on the way out. So that's the formal stuff. Let's get into the fun stuff. Maybe fun for you guys don't have the questions yet. So we're going to introduce our panelists here. With soccer, we have Robert Kavikia. Hold your applause. With ringette, we have Jay Pennell. And with Medicine Hat Minor Hockey, Chad Barron. And joining us on Zoom, we will have Greg Morrison with the Medicine Hat Mavericks. And as well, we'll have representatives of Alberta Health, Jason McDonald and Susan Nolt, available for questions on the Zoom portion of the panel as well. Welcome to our panelists up top. Not sure if they can hear us. Greg, can you hear us? All right, we got a thumbs up from Greg, so we've got some sound up there. We also have in the house from the City of Medicine Hat, we have Natalie Sauer and David Young, so they will be fielding questions as well if you have something specifically in their direction as they point fingers at each other as to who has to answer. Yes. And we will get ourselves moving. I'm going to start right from closest to me to furthest, and we're just going to get everybody familiar with maybe your roles within your organization. Tell us a bit about how long you've been involved or in the position you're currently in. Some of the challenge that you've faced. Was your season shut down, or is it imminent coming up for the first time? Just a couple of loose odds and ends, maybe 3 or 4 sentences each. We'll start at this end here with Chad.
Okay, is it on then? Yeah. So I am with Medicine Hat Minor Hockey. I am the operations manager. I've been in this position since June of this year. So it's been an ongoing learning experience for me right from the start, especially, you add COVID into it. We are up and running. We are in the evaluation process right now, trying to form teams and get ready should leagues start. There has been indications that, some of the higher level teams will be starting this month, so it's promising for the rest of our association that we're going to be able to play games here at some point in 2020 here. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, you were one of the first sports in the line of fire. I mean, in March, hockey season was still operating last spring, and the tail end of the season was canceled. So you're kind of in season 2.0 with sort of some of the COVID issues.
Yeah, we got shut down. We had some teams, ready to go to provincials and things like that. So unfortunately, those things were canceled. But yeah, they started that off, and we've been adapting to the new stuff that they've been putting out and trying to stay ahead of that kind of restrictions.
I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve. I like it. Jay, tell us about ringette.
So my role with ringette, I decided to pick up the president's role. Last year I was actually the registrar, so I've got a hand in the association pretty well in the thick of it. A lot of stuff that was said about hockey, it's pretty much the same for ringette. We got shut down March. I think it was March 13th was the drop dead date for really everything. We had teams ready to go to Westerns, provincials that were missed. Yeah, going into this year, we're a lot the same, getting evaluations done, putting teams together. We've got some players on the ice. It's been okay, but COVID's definitely added a twist to it. There's a lot more for coaches to look at, a lot more for the executive to look at. So
Yeah, it hits you on a lot of different fronts, doesn't it?
yeah.
And Robert, tell us a little bit about how soccer is moving along.
Yeah, so I'm the executive director for the Soccer Association here in town. And so we were actually shut down in our last weekend, basically, so the day before our provincials for all of our competitive teams. So we actually were able to finish our house league season pretty much, and then we got shut down then. And then we were fortunate enough to be reopened at the end of June, actually. So we had about 2 weeks. Our board asked us to get things running in 2 weeks, and we were pretty fortunate that we were allowed to return to modified games. So we had mini leagues, full contact of cohorts of 50. So it was interesting for sure for us. There was a lot of adjusting at that time because things were changing literally every day, sometimes, a couple times a day. So we were fortunate to get running. We were operating at about 45% for our outdoor season from what we normally would operate. But still, the fact that we were able to get out in the field so quickly and so early, that was a blessing for us for sure.
Excellent. Greg, we'll turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about the Medicine Hat Mavericks and how this impacted your season.
Sure. Hi, Trevor. Yeah, so we were slated to start May 28th. So a lot of our Board of Governor meetings started happening around March. What's going to happen? We're going to postpone the season. And then we got to a drop dead date where we just canceled the entire season. So the fact that we have some interprovincial travel, 80% of our rosters are American players. That was probably the biggest one for us. We were kind of watching to see what the airports were allowed to do. That was it. So we carried on a little bit with our youth camps. That's something we're known for as well. And our youth camps outdoors at Athletic Park kind of got underway in June, and I just got off the field tonight. I still got my gear on, so I just rolled in here for this meeting. So not a great summer on the summer collegiate front. I can't speak for Little League baseball, but they did cancel their season. So I think that's how baseball at the Little League level was impacted as well.
Yeah, it seems like it's impacted all sports and all activities for sure. I'm going to pass this one across the floor as well, and we'll maybe start with Greg on this one. I mean, there's a lot of things that obviously COVID was going to impact. Can you think of one specific scenario that's caught you off guard that you had no idea that you would be addressing in light of the COVID situation? What's something that's really going on behind the scenes or an impact that you just hadn't even thought of?
I'd say just the level of management that I've had to do. I like to be on the field as a coach, and I think the level of communication, of management, not necessarily on the field with our programming, with our youth camps, but just communicating to parents, communicating to players, trying to stay up to date with what the guidelines are. That to me was just, I would have never thought it had been so much work, that side of it. Ironically, probably the easiest thing to manage was a coach on a field with players. You get your cones, you have your programming, you can adapt. But I think just the administrative side, I was off the field more than I'd been on the field. And that to me was a bit of a surprise.
And how about yourself, Robert? Have you found anything along those lines?
Yeah, so communication was a big one. You didn't want to alarm people, so when something would happen, it was, there were some challenges for sure, how you worded things to make sure you didn't send out, a panic alarm and everyone, stops showing up and thinks they've been in contact with somebody that had COVID and so on. So, because we did have one case internally, which we managed, I think, pretty well there. And so I think communication was key. We had to make sure all of our communication that went out, we reviewed it over and over before we sent it out. And news travels fast here. So actually, within 2 hours of us hearing about a positive case, people were texting me. So I didn't have a chance to react at that point. So I think that was challenging. Then the equipment side of things, we don't think much. As coaches, we lay down cones. We ask kids to move cones, pick up different pieces of equipment. And I think for coaches, for sure, I think that was a big challenge. Trying to make sure that kids didn't touch them. We had to, so many times I would catch myself asking a player to move a cone, and I realized, wait, we can't do that, right? We have to stop that. So I think that was another challenge for sure. Things we don't think about.
Yeah, some of the general flow on a day-to-day basis was dramatically impacted and stressful, wasn't it?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Jay, how about yourself?
Really not much to add to it. Greg covered quite a bit of what we're seeing in Ringette. Like, the administrative side is monstrous. Like, it's every time you turn around, there's new information coming out. Like, I think in the last week, I've gotten 7 emails from Ringette, Alberta, and everything is something new. Like, we had rules that were in place yesterday that changed this afternoon at 4. So it's ever moving, and that's, I think for my role, it's tough because now I'm trying to pick people out in the association and go, okay, you need to do this, you need to do this, because it's not manageable by one person. There's no way.
Yeah, it's certainly the workload on that, and I'm assuming you're just going to echo the other 3, so we're going to flip the question a little bit and start with you on this side. Obviously, you 3 have a little bit different scenario than Greg in the fact that you'd have provincial organizations that are sort of backing the programming. At what role have they played? How have they been supportive, and where have they been in this whole process for you?
Well, we got Hockey Canada and Hockey Alberta. They issue their return to play. So as a member of their association, we are bound to follow their rules. So that's a lot of, they've updated it. September 3rd was the most recent one. So they are, adapting and making changes. They come a lot more slowly, it seems like, than some of the other sports. We're still at one sport cohort and talking to these other associations. They're school sports and, other sports are allowed. But they are, attentive to our questions, right? They respond fairly rapidly to things like that. They know the challenges that we face, so they have provided a lot of direction for us, on how to run evaluations. That's probably one of our bigger challenges, the cohort size, and to get these kids, onto teams as quickly as we can, and fairly assess them, with only having those socially distanced ice times, right? So that's been a challenge for us, but again, Hockey Alberta has been great to give us, a framework to work off of. It's just, we'd like everyone, we'd like things to be moving along a little more quickly, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah, it's sort of a hurry up and wait type of scenario, right? Everybody's got a sense of urgency for the answer. Greg, I want to flip this one to you. You are a bit of an anomaly. I guess soccer as well. We're going to the indoor season. Maybe would fit this as an outdoor operation. You may, I would assume, on the outside had the least amount of impact in terms of what has to happen as you're dealing with the home front. You've, as an outdoor program, have probably had, I would assume, some of the least impact in terms of what has to take place in terms of organizationally on the field. Being outdoor, you've had a little bit more framework. But what are some of the things that you've had to put in place to be able to operate outdoor?
Quite a few. Trying to space out sessions, so there was a bit of a gap in between those sessions, so you didn't have the same group showing up as some are exiting. For us, ball cleaning, we're dedicating, you're looking at 100 baseballs usually per group that you're having to clean twice or clean and then sanitize. We did, even though we're outside, and 99% of the time we were not within 6 feet. We still chose to implement the policy of coaches are just going to wear masks instead of put them on, take them off because they might be getting close. Because as a coach, you're getting those interactions where you might be hitting a ground ball to a player from 100 feet away, but now you pause the play and you're going and talking and you're within 2-3 feet. So for us, mask wearing was something we just wanted to do, whether someone driving by would say, wow, they aren't even close to each other, but you might pick up the balls together and put them in the bucket together. So for us, the mask wearing was big. But yeah, those were things that I think just trying to emulate what the Alberta government, what everybody was meant to be doing, just trying to sanitize in between plays, washing your hands when you can, things that I think people are hearing over and over again. Easy said, but tough to implement and tough to stay on top of. And that's what I found was a big thing in my case, was just the redundancy of it. And I was really only managing myself and a couple other coaches. So, bigger sports where you got coaches and volunteer coaches, I can imagine that that's a big administrative part for these guys.
For sure. And I'm going to throw this one to soccer. In terms of things like PPE and certain safety requirements, obviously that stuff is not cheap, that stuff is not free. How have you managed to bridge some of the hurdles with those protocols that are needed, and how have you managed to maybe either recover some of those costs or pass some of those along?
So we were able to, we applied for a grant basically from the government, and so we actually qualified, and we're waiting for it still, but we'll hopefully get it soon. We were approved, so that's going to definitely help us in terms of how much we had to spend on the PPE. And then finding it at first was a little challenging, but we're fortunate. One of our members actually owns a pharmacy, so she was able to assist us and help us get the stuff in prior to our season. We had a quick 2-week turnaround, so we had to put everything together pretty quickly. So that helped for sure. And then, we had to, we have check-in staff, so that's something that we thought, we can get volunteers to help us with our check-in. So that's one of the requirements. You have to have a check-in, so one entry and one exit point at the fields, which on a soccer pitch, that's difficult when you have such a big open space and it makes more sense for people to kind of leave anywhere versus all leaving through one kind of exit. So we actually hired some COVID staff. We used actually college players. It was pretty helpful over the summer. So, they had to wear the PPE and check people in and make sure kind of everyone was following the guidelines. We felt that was pretty helpful, but there is a cost to that, right, of course. So we're hoping that some of that grant can cover that as well.
For sure. And we talked a little bit, or I was overhearing you talk a little earlier, even some of the subtle things you don't realize is that your efficiency of time use on the pitch. Time on a pitch is not free, but you had to accommodate for some time windows. What are some of the accommodations you've had to make in that respect, which do cost but don't sort of show up per se as extra?
Yeah, so for outdoor, we kind of worked in a half-hour gap, and then the city worked with us a bit on that. And again, we're the only soccer association, only ones using the pitch, so they were able to be flexible with us. But indoor is a little more challenging, so we start our indoor season next week, actually. So I'm not sure if you know, but the FLC had some water damage to one of their soccer pitches indoor, so we only have one field, and we're over 100% of our registration from first indoor season. So that's awesome, right? But we only have one field now, and we can only we can only book back to back if we're going to fit all of our soccer on one field throughout the winter. So we're going to have to basically shorten our games or our training sessions to 50 minutes versus the hour, and then quickly rush people out, especially the spectators and so on, right? And then get the next group in, and that's going to be challenging for sure when you have 40 kids that are 5 years old, playing at the same time, and then the next group has another 40 kids that are 7, and you're trying to manage them. So we're happy, we're excited that our numbers are up there, but we know this is going to be a challenge next week especially the first and second week, right? Getting them in and out and making sure everyone's following the guidelines. So.
Excellent. Good to hear numbers are strong or solid. I want to take this one to the two of you. You have shared facilities in essence, being indoor in the hockey rinks. Take us through some of the COVID protocols you had to put in place for your associations, and maybe walk us through some of the ways you found the community has embraced or supported or helped along with those protocols. Go ahead.
Well, so we've had to, with Hockey Alberta, when we're running socially distanced skates, so we have to have those when we're, larger cohort or larger than the 50% max or 50-person max. So masks, we've had masks implemented, leading kids in and out of the rink and into the dressing room, ensuring that they are keeping that mask on until they put their helmet on and go out. So those are all things that, Hockey Alberta, and we've been working with the city on as well to make sure that, we're getting that buy-in. One of our bigger challenges is actually getting the parents to buy into it. Not everybody wants to wear masks and things like that. We haven't made it mandatory or anything. We follow the, recommendations, I guess, and the guidelines, and we try to educate our members as much as we can. But, we're really relying on them to help us achieve, what we want to for the safe return and following these restrictions, right? So there's been challenges there with that. We do, there is some people that are 100% into it, and then there's others that, for whatever reason, just aren't right now. So again, we are just continuing to work with them and to educate, right, and just to kind of encourage that, we are setting a good example for these kids and leading by example, right? If we wear masks, and that's a lot of our coaching staffs and things like that are doing, just to show that, if we're doing it, right, the kids are more inclined to do it as well. So hopefully that we can get the rest of our members on board with that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, getting the buy-in is interesting, especially in youth activities, because you're not just trying to culture the youth players, but you have to culture it on the home front as well. Jay, obviously you operate in a similar venue, in a similar parameter. One of the things that we were talking about a little earlier was the inconsistency, or the perceived inconsistency in wording, various things like that. Are you finding that your organization provincially is providing similar guidance that the hockey is?
Yeah, I mean, we're bound by Ringette Canada and Ringette Alberta. A lot of what their return to play, when it funnels down from national to provincial sport and then to all the member associations, they've given us a lot of good framework. And the one thing I can say about Ringette Alberta is they have basically made it plug and play for us. Like anything they're pushing down to the member associations, we just have to turn around, take Ringette Alberta off and put Medicine Hat Ringette Association on. They've been really good. And just giving us the idea of how to go about communicating, making sure that communication is there to have the parents understand that this is why we're doing things the way we are. With it ever changing, that is definitely a hard part to deal with. But we can only do as much as what we know for information, and I think we've done a decent job at having our membership know that when the new information comes out, we are getting it to them as timely as we can.
Excellent. I want to whip all through four of you on this one quickly. Maybe, if we can, anything specific that you can share for our benefit in terms of what your operating protocol is in the event you do have a test positive in your organization. Do you have contact tracing? What types of things do you have in place? Greg, we'll start with you up top. I'm not sure how much this impacts you now, but did you have some protocols that you can share with us in case you had any stuff show up in the summer at all?
Yeah, so we have a Google form that players are meant to fill out. If there's the symptom in the middle of practice, our practices were generally an hour to hour and a half. So if it was 20 to 30 minutes in, child gets a headache. Is it dehydration? That doesn't matter. We got to pull him out. We immediately separate him, contact the parents, and then he's done for the day. And then they are to stay in communication with us on his return after testing. So it's pretty specific. It's good to have the written protocols. I was the manager of it. And I suppose it was probably an advantage to being a coach on the field because you're right there. And if that child is on the bench or in the dugout, it's immediate. But yeah, having the policy of knowing what to do when, and communication with, public health inspector, minister of health. These are great communication pieces, and I got nothing but good things to say about Alberta Health Services, because we did have a situation as well, and their communication was amazing for us too. So.
Excellent. And we'll throw it to you, Robert, with soccer.
Yeah, so there's quite a few protocols similar. If a player's feeling sick, of course, we take them out of the practice, contact the parent. With our competitive side of things, it was a lot easier. The team managers would control that. Players come in, we would mark down, who dropped them off and so on. So in case something did happen, we were able to trace. It's similar for our recreation league. The COVID staff actually marked that. So when they check in, they actually mark down who dropped them off, who was in the car, and so on. Of course, that takes some time, but eventually everyone got the rhythm and it went pretty smoothly. We did have a case internally, and it was the first real challenge, I guess, with this COVID situation for us. And, we contacted AHS and at the time, and ASA, our governing body, and everybody was great. We got good info. But, everyone kind of said, well, we need to, until we're contacted by AHS to tell, let us know that there was a true contact somewhere, just hold off. You don't really have to give out a communication. But being a small town, like I mentioned, within 2 hours, I was getting hit up on my phone that, I was getting messages, someone's positive in the association, who is it? Are we all at risk? So what we decided to do that night was send out a communication to the whole community. So the teams or the group that may have been impacted or come in contact with somebody that actually might have come in contact with that person. We let them know that we've spoken to AHS, spoke to Alberta Soccer. They've deemed it low risk, so we're going to continue to operate. We're fine. That person that may have come in contact will not be there. We let the rest of the community know that they were at no risk at all. Their programs are going to continue running. When we found out that the person had tested negative, that may have come in contact with this other person within the association, that was a volunteer coach, we immediately let everybody know that we got the negative result. You're all fine. Everybody's okay. And of course, that was not what we were told to do, but we felt like we had to communicate with our members, and we received a lot of positive feedback for that from our members. And so my advice is, yes, communication right away. Let people know. Of course, you can't let them know who it is, so you got to be very careful with that, of course. But definitely, people appreciate being kept in the loop, or else you're going to have chaos, right? So that was definitely the biggest challenge for us, when we had a positive case. So.
Managing the communication stream.
Yeah,
that'd be a tough one. Jay?
I guess in terms of contact tracing and stuff, we've been really lucky. Ringette Alberta actually, for all member associations, they went out and purchased the team, I guess it's Ramp Team App is what it's called. And we're basically tracing, like if you RSVP, you're known to be at that practice, and you have to sign your questionnaire. If you don't sign that questionnaire, you're not getting on the ice. So I think the way we've looked at it is probably to put it to a zero tolerance and say, if you can't say that you're symptom-free by either answering the questions and having a yes, you have one, well, you're automatically out. If you don't answer, it doesn't mean that you're symptom-free and you can go on the ice. It's no questionnaire, no ice. So we've got a little pushback on that, but I mean, we're just a week into it. So.
And can you say the name of that app again, just for the benefit of
Ramp Team app.
Ramp Team?
Yeah, if anyone wants to see it afterwards, I have it on my phone.
Okay, excellent. It's good to know.
So yeah, we're similar. We have Team Snap actually, so all our registration went through that. They do have a health check thing on there that they are allowing us to use for free this year. So that again is they check off those 5 questions. The coach can automatically see who's done it and who hasn't, and what their answers are. And they're supposed to do it any time before they're coming to the rink. That's going to be a requirement. The problem is we need to get into the teams first, so we can have that communication back and forth on that team. In the evaluation process, we have the check-in, right? So we have our list where we're handing out pennies and numbers and things like that. So essentially that's our contact tracing there. We don't really have a way of keeping track of the spectators that are there. I guess, with having the list of kids, we can notify those families, and then, they can go from there, I guess. It will become a lot easier once we're down into the team sizes and we can have that team snap. We're running 80 to 90 kids through evaluations, in 4 or 5 groups. It becomes a challenge to try and keep track of, other than the kids, the parents is the thing. Hockey Alberta, again, they've given us a framework, and we're talking, with the facilities with, if we do have a, positive case or someone starts showing symptoms, right, obviously we're going to remove them immediately. And then, practice put on the gloves and put on the mask if you have to be treating them, and get them a safe ride home and all that kind of stuff. So they have given us, or told us how to deal with that, I guess. So it's just more good advice from them coming for some direction.
Excellent. And you had mentioned basically 100% capacity for the season right now. Numbers are up. Do you have numbers by chance in terms of how this has impacted enrollment for the two of you off the top of your head?
We're down a little bit, but we're very close to what we normally. I think we're around 900 or so, and usually we're at 1,000. A lot of it, a lot of them, the kids that aren't playing hockey this year that used to have chosen school sports. So, that's our Hockey Alberta still says they say one sport cohort. So they had to make that choice essentially before registration was done. So we are down a little bit, but generally we're doing pretty good.
I think on the Ringette side, we're a little bit lucky because what Ringette Alberta did was they, up until today, like I said, things are changing. You could only have one Ringette cohort, which still allowed school sports and stuff like that. Our numbers, I mean, there's the luck of me being the registrar last year. I was well in tune with those numbers. I was told that on average most youth sports were going to drop 30%. And we're a small association to start out with. We had 125 registered last year. You take 30% of that away, that's a big drop. But as of now, we still have kids inquiring about coming to play, even though we're almost ready to put teams on the ice for games. And we're at 107. So we dropped probably 18, 19, and that was expected with some kids just being leery of being in two sports. And I don't even know, that might be the parents and not the kids. The kids might still want to play ringette, but it might be the parents just saying, okay, you're going to play a school sport, we're going to stick with that. So we haven't seen a big drop. I'm actually impressed that we were able to keep our numbers up.
It's good to see that you've had reasonable numbers with the hockey and the ringette and staying up there. I want to throw one to you for soccer, because we were talking earlier about the cohorts and the groups, and how have you been able to manage or PR some of those cohort restrictions, and have you guys put some protocols in place to police those? I know that's a difficult and challenging task. What sort of hurdles have you looked at?
Yeah, so that's definitely challenging for us in terms of, managing our own cohorts is easy. Of course, we set the register. We do the teaming, so we can manage that. And the school sport cohort situation, actually, that got dropped on us last week by ASA, saying that they can now play school sports. So we actually had everything organized, and then we had more registrants, which we're fortunate, and I'm happy about that. But we had to kind of change everything and move our age groups around and so on to manage that. But in terms of policing, it becomes challenging when, it'll be easier now because they can play the one school sport, but there's no central registration system here in the city that would allow us to manage that. And we don't know if they're playing other sports. We have no clue. Unless we start communicating with other associations, we won't know. So that's definitely going to be a hurdle for everyone if we're sticking with the one cohort. But again, we're fortunate that they can play school sport and soccer. I think most likely it's challenging for the athletes to be playing other sports as well. So maybe that's going to help us manage that. But definitely a central registration system would help us.
Yeah, it certainly seems like FOIP would possibly be an issue in that sort of circle as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you need to get approval for sure from everyone upon registration. So
absolutely. Greg, I'm going to you with this one, because when we look at things that have pivoted and we look at changes that have been sort of forced upon us with COVID, pivoting is not always a bad thing. Sometimes the pivot is finding a new way to deliver what we used to deliver, or pivoting can be a chance to break out the four walls, look at it completely different. How do you perceive the positives of COVID playing out in terms of long-term athlete development and some of those things, and how can we possibly see this impact long-term in a positive situation in terms of youth development?
Yeah, I think it's always striking the balance between in-game development and individual skill development. As parents and coaches and players, we all love games. For something like this to say you can't go play a game an hour and a half or 2 hours away, you got to find a way. You got to do inter-squad. You have to do more individual skill development. Baseball is it's a team sport within individual skill development. So, taking 50 to 75 ground balls, taking 50 to 75 baseball swings generally doesn't happen in a young person's baseball career, because they show up to a game and they play catch and they play a baseball game and might get 3 at-bats and take a total of 3 to 6 swings. So, me selfishly as a kinesiologist, the silver lining was, hey, we're forced to do this. It's all we got. And, lo and behold, some of these kids, you could see them after 1, 2, 3 days, 2, 3 weeks getting better at a lot of these drills. And I think, and you can see a lot of coach talking about it, coaches, everything from overtraining to individual skill development. When we are back and there are no restrictions, I think a lot of athletes will be the better for it. You have to balance that with, of course, how many athletes have we lost that now are not in sport. So, if you have to choose, you'd like to strike that balance and say, for us, we had an hour and a half. We would do 45 minutes of individual skill work. And then if we had time, we would have 2 to 3 innings of inter-squad play where we could set out some parameters, where we could control that environment. So, Definitely pivoting, adapting. Every situation is different from sport to sport. And that's the best advice I can give parents and coaches and players is just communicate, know that your situation is an individual circumstance, and try to see the silver lining with it as a get better as an individual athlete.
Yeah, it certainly has changed some of the dynamics because obviously we're forced into certain scenarios, but it takes us back to some of the old school training that we saw for years before we had that scenario where activities kind of blew out and got so big. If you weren't playing all the time, you weren't improving. And so it's neat to see that. I like that you mentioned trying to find the silver lining. Saw a couple of head nods here. Anything you guys want to add that you've seen or you potentially see as a positive? I know as somebody who's operated in this environment with sports academies, I know that there are some things that I've found operationally, even if it's on the admin side, that I am now doing way better than I used to. Have you found some silver linings in your operations? Any of you have anything you want to jump in with, Jay?
I think one of the biggest silver linings we found in Ringette is the fact that we started out this year where we didn't know if we could even travel out of our health zone. So it refocused us. It turned it back to the game we're at is supposed to be about fast play, fun, and friendship on the ice. And when you start splitting out and playing league play and stuff like that, you lose that. And being forced to think inside the box, I guess, is the best way to term it. We started to really refocus on that, and I think we gained some numbers based on that. And that's kind of where I spoke on the last question. I thought we were going to lose some, and we almost stayed on par for given the situation.
Robert?
On the soccer side of things, there's quite a few positives actually here that have come out of this. One of them being, playing soccer in September for our competitive teams. So that's something that hasn't happened in the past, or maybe it has a long time ago. But when I arrived here, I was kind of I've been here for just over a year now, and I noticed that they finished their outdoor season, the competitive teams, in early August, basically. But now, and I kept hearing, people won't play soccer in September. It's not going to happen, right? So we've proved that they will, and they will show up, and they will continue training and playing. So now I'm hoping that we'll continue with this, and our season can be extended now for next year, and we can play into September, right? So that's one of them. Another thing that's positive, one thing that we've been pushing for on the development side is more training, both in recreation and in competitive. And of course, this has forced us now to play small-sided games, get more touches on the ball for development for the kids, versus putting, kids 11v11, and you got half the team that will never touch the soccer ball, right? So now they're forced in 6v6, 7v7 situations to get more involved in the game. So that's definitely helping us in development. So there's definitely a lot of positives, from this. And another one, going into the indoor season now, a big thing for our development program was, we play boarded soccer, but the rest of the country is boardless, when it comes to competitive training and games. So now, of course, the COVID situation, so not having as much time at the FLC in the boarded setup, as well as one field kind of being taken away, we're forced to go back to a boardless facility at the Cypress Field House, which is actually where we should be going with development. So a lot of good things, and people are accepting. I feel like the members have been more accepting of these things now. They're just happy to be playing sport, right? So this is working for us. So that's a huge positive.
Yeah, it seems like it's a pretty forgiving environment for the most part. I mean, obviously you get the odd squeaky wheel or the frustration, but quick show of hands, would you guys all agree it's been reasonably, for the most part, well received? People are pretty patient with the things you have to do? Yeah. Got a couple hands. And Chad, you were nodding a little bit on the change of play or the change of paradigms. What have you seen happen with hockey?
Well, I think for us, it's a huge opportunity for skill development, right? And again, we having to be forced to stay within our area, and our coaches are getting creative now on finding ways. Since we can't play a whole lot of games and we can't leave the city just yet, just to have to make practices more enjoyable, right? And maybe switching things up a little bit. That's going to be a positive for us, right? It helps with their growth as they adapt to these changes and find new ways to keep kids interested in going on the ice. But now that we have this, they're going to have way more practices than games. It's a real opportunity for these kids to get better. Like Greg was saying, that individual skill development should really progress this year a lot more than probably previous years, for sure.
Yeah, a lot more action in the sport for the players, for sure. Let's flip the scope of this a little bit. Everything here has been outside of your organization. We all know that leadership is heavy. It weighs on people. It's going to weigh on the top end of the board and those types of things, as well as coaches. What kind of things have you as an organization considered or thought of or explored in terms of ways to support the coaches and the parents and maybe some of the other people internally on the situation? Because obviously as the season wears on, it is going to be intense, and it already has shown that. Have you given any thought to that? Anybody want to jump in onto that one? Have you jumped on anything inside?
With regards to coaches, I guess development, something that, we've been able to do. I mean, with all the time we had off when we were shut down, the Zoom meetings have been kind of like a blessing, right? So now we can actually be in touch more often with our coaches, with our board members. It's just a lot easier now to get people in the same room, so we can have conversations that we need to have, right? So I think that's definitely been one way that we've been able to kind of support and open up to our members, even getting more participation in those meetings through Zoom meetings. So I think that's been helpful. So
better connection with your group. Have you had any changes? Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Just the communication and trying to help them out and communicate to our members as an association and not leave it up to an individual coach. We want to communicate to parents that we don't want to leave it to a coach to make a decision to send a kid home and things like that, right? So we're trying to take a lot of that off of them and sort of push it towards our members and the parents to be responsible for that. If your kid's coughing and things like that, don't make that coach decide. So we're trying to stay ahead of it that way and communicate, from the top down more and not leave it up to those coaches to try and police, those little things, right? So through our, continual meetings and, the website and emailing things out, just as things are updated and having that communication, I think, and just, again, taking it off the coaches and not putting that onus on them, that they can focus on that team and the development and things like that and not have to worry so much about what's going on around in the facility, for sure.
Excellent. Greg, do you have anything you want to add there?
Yeah, sure. For me, I think, and a lot of people, it's really taught us about appreciation for how when times are good and from whether it's board members to coaches to players to parents, that communication piece of just everybody opening up to each other, everybody be pulling the same way now and trying to pull through this and get through whether it's a practice or a week or a season. I think, those that get through this and are going to really, organizations are going to just see great dividends, for their efforts. So, it's tough times for all. And I think a lot of people are appreciating each other through this. So.
Excellent. And we are going to open it to the floor for some questions here momentarily. So if you do have some questions, we will get to you. I want to throw a question just out to everybody here. I know Medicine Hat is a very supportive community. There is so much opportunity for collaboration. Have any of you had an opportunity to collaborate with other organizations or people in the community who have been able to shed some light or help you with certain things, be it finding grant opportunities or creative fundraising opportunities? Any collaboration that you've been able to take part in?
So, I think this is actually great because we probably should, right? And and I think, I guess we've all been so busy trying to navigate through this time, right? So maybe we haven't communicated as much as we should, right? I know I reach out to Kara often, or we have communicated, and that's been great. And I'm looking forward to now as things are settling down a bit to communicating more and collaborating more. So hopefully, that's kind of like an invitation, I guess, to everybody here. If there's ever anything anyone wants to connect on, I'm always open to discuss. Between the college season being on right now, it's tough sometimes, but I'm definitely open to it for sure. So if anybody wants to collaborate, feel free to reach out.
Excellent. Yeah, it's sort of that old saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And I guess in a community like this, we are less with, competing with one another for communities or for dollars. I mean, the athletes are committed to the sports they enjoy, and it's how we support it and how we PR it together. So, yeah, it's obviously a great opportunity for us to look at collaborating. Greg, have you had a chance to collaborate? I mean, you looking at the league level with other teams, have you had some chance to get into some conversations with them about strategies they're using for the future, how they're sort of problem solving through it?
Absolutely. From talking to other summer collegiate leagues in Canada to professional baseball teams in the States to owners of WHL teams, I'm involved with the Vauxhall Baseball Academy, so I'm just consuming as much information as I can, trying to capture some of the return to play documents that some of the professional baseball leagues have used, and the great input that's been put into those. But yeah, we have to, as the leaders and board members and coaches, just every day it's more work, but just it's evolving so fast that it's such a benefit to lean on other people in other sports, other divisions within your sports. I tip my hat to the Soccer Association because I was one of the parents that listened in. I think it was several weeks ago on. It was a communication Zoom piece for parents, and it was great just to hear the voice of other people. Me as a coach, one, a baseball guy, hearing how organized they were, and two, as a parent, saying, okay, there's been some thought put into this. And I think parents really appreciate that the coaches, no one's making big bucks, even the lucky ones of us that are getting paid. We're not getting paid by the hour. And it's always nice to see that with organizations who are putting that extra time in. So that for me has been great.
Yeah, it's powerful leaning on others, both for just support reasons as well as organizational reasons and brainstorming. So it's great to see that you've had some collaboration. It's great to see you open the door to some collaboration here as well. Maybe we could, Jay, maybe we'll put you on the spot on this one. But what is, in the whole scope of things, obviously there's trepidation and fear around the environment we're operating in. Do you feel that the fear of COVID specific is bigger than the fear that it will impact their sporting experience? What do you feel is coming off the parents' plate in terms of fear? Is one leading the other?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Like, being a parent that has a kid in the sport, and I'm also coaching, plus I'm on the board. I mean, I wear a lot of different hats when I look at Ringette, and to me, there's not a lot of fear, I don't think, right now, because our case count is low. I think now that we're presented with being able to travel outside of our zone, I think that's where we have a little bit of trepidation. We may see some parents opt not to go. We do have a wonderful group of parents that will do what they want, not what they think is expected. Sometimes we think that people will just follow the herd kind of thing, but we as an association have put it right out there to all coaches, all parents, everybody, that if you don't want to travel, you don't have to. So I think we're being maybe more proactive on things and saying, if you do feel like this is something that is a fear, we're not making you do it. And I think that's really gained a lot of favor with the membership, just saying that, we're here for you, we'll listen to you, we're going to do what's right is basically what it comes down to.
Excellent. And Chad, let's maybe go to yourself with hockey and travel. Maybe give us a window into the world of what travel potentially looks like for a hockey team as we move forward.
So the higher levels, they are already, Hockey Alberta is going to work with associations. When they move to the modified season, which originally was not supposed to be till October 30th in their latest document, and that may be for the rest of our age groups and levels, but at the AAA level, they are in a pod. They'll be in pod play where they're going to other cities, and I believe it's October 17th, I think, yeah. So they'll be playing games here against, and I think we got Airdrie, Airdrie Okotoks, Lethbridge and us, right? So we're allowed to play those four teams. When they're traveling back and forth, before they go and play another team, there's going to have to be that 14-day non-participation period in between. So that would be where they are switching essentially to another cohort group, and they'd be able to go play, if they're in Airdrie this weekend, they wait 2 weeks, and then they can go to Okotoks and then wait 2 weeks and go to Lethbridge kind of thing. So that's where we're at right now. We're hoping that the rest of our age groups and that can move into that pod play. And allow, right now we're not allowed to travel, from the AA level and down. We have to play within our own city. So, that's, part of the challenge, right? We do have, two teams at AA that can play each other. But when we only have, one team at a certain level, finding them competition is going to be hard, right? And that's, after this weekend, we're getting down to making some of those teams as well. But the hope is to get to the pod play at least before the new year and have these 3 to 5 teams and get those games in. And then, come 2021, we're all hopeful that things can be somewhat normal and we can be back to traveling as is. But yeah, as of now, we're not really technically allowed other than at that AAA level.
Gotcha. Anything you want to add from the soccer perspective?
So, with regards to travel, we've tried to arrange cohorts with Lethbridge. Finding competition is definitely challenging, and that was one of the biggest hurdles we had with running our development program, our RAS program. Keeping these kids motivated without competition, right? Or playing in the city, we really don't have, I think in one age group we have 2 competitive teams, right? And they're at 2 different levels. So, mixing up the age groups, playing inter-squad matches as well. We did what we could, but in terms of travel, we're hoping, it didn't work out, just because Lethbridge setup was a little bit different than ours over the summer. But we are hoping through the winter we can, get out there and play some matches there and create mini cohorts with other clubs. There's not that many near us here for soccer, but we're going to look to do our best and try to get at least 2 or 3. So.
Excellent. We're going to open it to some questions from the floor. We have the opportunity to ask questions of the people that are here, Greg, on Zoom, as well as a couple of members of Alberta Health Services, and again, as we mentioned, some representatives of the City of Medicine Hat who can also field some questions. Do we have any questions from the floor? Yes.
This is what Greg said. Greg and I talked about this a couple months ago. I think, Greg, we did that. And all power to you, and I hope your league runs again next year. But are your strategies going to face the future of what your sport's bringing? I don't care who answers, but I hope your strategy. I'd love to hear what your strategy is moving forward.
Well, for us, we've been advised by Hockey Alberta to get into teams as quickly as possible to get the kids competing and playing those games. Like you said, it's a nice distraction from what's going on in the rest of the world. So what we are hopeful that we will get to move into these leagues and these leagues will start. They are looking at tentative start dates and things like that. If it comes the new year and there's nothing happening, there's got to be a point where we say, we're going to restructure everything and we're just going to play locally. And whether that can involve Irvine and Redcliffe, their associations as well, so they can have some compete level, and just to get all those kids, able to play. We really want to focus on development though this year for sure, right? And we want to make sure our ratio of, practices to games remains the same, and give them that opportunity. But there will come a point if, they're saying, okay, no leagues this year, then we will, we have discussed setting up like our own mini league within the city and making it competitive. So where it's just kind of like a house league, right? Where you have an A, a B, and a C even, depending on the amount of kids. And they just are able to have some semblance of a regular season, right? So that's our plan. And again, we are fingers crossed it doesn't come to that, but yeah, we've been communicating too with parents, right, that this can be a very positive thing. There's the development, right, and then their skill development this year. Big opportunity for us to improve that. So that will remain our focus as we move, no matter what happens. So.
I think on the ringette level, It's always been a focus on skill development, and I did mention before this has given us a chance to refocus on that. I think we're in the same position as minor hockey where, we're able to get teams put together, teams to get some competing out there. But when it all comes down to it, if there is a reversion back to not being able to do that, I think we've got a strong plan internally that we'd want to put a house league together and keep these kids A, on the ice, and B, get their compete level up and just foster that friendship thing. Like, these girls are playing ringette for a reason. They want to compete, and there's also a social aspect to it, and to lose that, I think, would be detrimental to our sport itself. And being that we're a small association, anything going backwards would really hurt us. So I think our focus is on sort of trying to grow the sport and using the fun and development side. It does have a side effect of kids getting better, but I mean, it's all about how you market it. I do have to say we have a great PR person that's actually in the back of the room there. She's been awesome to deal with. And yeah, getting out to our membership that this is what we're focusing on is the key thing for us.
Yeah, I think for us, the important thing is to be flexible during this time. So as things change, we change with it, right? Adapt. And, for us on our, in terms of our recreation league, I mean, nothing's really changed other than smaller cohorts and maybe, again, not playing 11v11, so modifying our game. But they're able to compete, so we're able to give them that in the recreation side. On the competitive side, it definitely is challenging. Of course, if things open up, we're definitely going to be, we're committed to traveling, and we've let parents know, and I am hoping that the parents will feel safe to travel and compete. But again, setting short-term goals, I think, is important. So what can we do? We know this is our situation, so this is how we'll deal with it now. And as things change, get together again and see what we can do. What else can we do? How can we grow and do more? So again, just being flexible and being willing. And again, that's the members as well, being cooperative, and ours have been, so that's great. Kind of adapting with us as we get new information and things open up. So flexibility is key, and we'll continue as things open to try to take part in whatever's happening. So if it's traveling to tournaments, then we're doing that, right? So,
Greg, anything you want to add into that question?
No, I think the points were covered, and just to magnify the adaptability portion of it, it's practice by practice, day by day, coach by coach, because some coaches are better at some things than others, and having that that programming is key. Great programming and great communication.
Excellent. Any other questions from the floor? Oh, excellent. From the Alberta Health Services? Yes, and so they don't have audio. I can give the sound from what question directly? Yeah, they're there for any questions we want to direct to Alberta Health Services. So they don't have any specific platforms they want to speak on, but they will take questions. Same with the City of Medicine Hat. Yeah. Sorry, and you had a question there. Yes.
So far for hockey, not so much. We're still in the process of selecting our teams, right? So we don't have a lot of coaches in place. With the higher level teams, I think that they're pretty well looked after there. And we've got some clinics lined up for that and stuff like that, some professional development for those coaches and things like that. But specifically, no, I haven't had a lot of anybody reaching out looking for added ideas. More so, just questions related to, are we allowed to play inter-squad games? Do the kids have to wear masks in the rooms and those kind of things, right? So it's more related to what Hockey Alberta expects of us, as opposed to them running their programs kind of thing, for us anyway.
On the ringette side, it's I think communication is what we're hearing from membership. and coaches, and that's, I guess, something we can't stress enough. I will admit we hadn't had the best communication at the start of this, but I think a lot of that leads to the fact that it's ever changing. I mean, it's pretty tough to communicate something and then turn around 2 days later and say, oh, what we told you 2 days ago, forget that, we got something new. So I think we're kind of still in react mode, and that might hurt us from an administrative standpoint, but it's really all we can do, and we are keeping our ear open to parents, coaches, even the members, just saying, hey, if you need something, reach out, we're there, and we'll get what you need. So it's something that's a work in progress, but I think every association is kind of hit with that, and we just sort of deal with it as it comes. I think Greg made a great point of it's day by day, practice by practice, coach by coach. It's fitting the needs of what's out there is, I think, how we have to look at it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think most people are, from our association, they're happy to be participating in sport. So, I mean, that was a big need is activity, and we've given them that. One thing from some of the older age groups on the competitive side is the motivation piece. We need to help motivate them, to keep them engaged and keep them training, and being motivated to train without the competition piece, right? So that's the need, right? And so that's definitely challenging, especially when there's other things that kids might want to do or can be doing, that might be more exciting for them. So you're trying to figure out ways to keep them engaged there. And I think what's happening now too is it's been happening, we've been stuck in this situation for so long, and I think the mental piece is going to come into play. I've already heard some rumblings from a couple players, so I think that's going to be a challenge, and that's something that we have to figure out. Anybody who's open to that discussion, I'm open to it, because I think we're all going to face that, the mental piece, right? Like, that's going to be tough. Because again, I can't imagine going through this as a 16, 17-year-old. Right? So being told you can't do things and can't compete in the game you love and so on. So I think that's going to be a tough discussion, and I think a lot of us will probably need some assistance with that. So,
excellent question. Any other questions from the floor? Yes.
I'm wondering if there's been an economic impact in terms of your sports, hosting tournaments, that sort of thing, and if that would, if there was, does it have an impact on the viability of the sport moving forward?
I'm just going to repeat the question as well, so the people that are catching through Zoom. So basically, the question is, what are the economic benefits, I guess, impacts that have come off of this with tournament travel inward or outward, and how is that sort of going to be, I guess, broached? Does it affect the viability long-term of your organization?
Well, we're fortunate. I think we're not allowed to have tournaments until the new year, again, under Alberta Hockey Canada's rules. They've said nothing to 2021, so that will have an effect on us. The majority of those tournaments that were in the first half of the year more generate money for those teams individually. The house league tournaments that we have, that's where the association makes money, and that's generally in the second half of the season. So we're hopeful that, we're still going to be able to pull those off. Again, that would really depend on what Alberta Health Services says and what Hockey Alberta dictates to us, but we're hoping that that'll happen. I don't think that it's going to, have any effect on us moving forward. We've been fortunate with the U17s coming last year and things like that, we're sitting okay right now, and our membership hasn't dropped a lot, so we're able to keep registration at the same cost and things like that, right? So it seems right now we should be okay, and again, we're hopeful that those tournaments go, and even if they don't, we should be okay for at least this year.
I think I can echo a lot of what was said on the minor hockey side with Ringette. We obviously were bound by the fact that there's no sanctioned events for Ringette Alberta, so we're not sending teams to tournaments. So that's kind of a financial gain for the parents. But on an association level, we have a fairly large tournament in running the Ed Horvath, and to not be able to run that this year, we were apprised of that early on in the summer when we sat through a webinar with Ring Out Alberta, and the first thing that was sent out to just about every association was, any tournaments you think you might have, don't bank on them for your budgeting. So I think they were really good at sort of stopping it before it got out of hand, and you started getting the bigger centers planning tournaments and planning their budgets based around that. We were able to keep fees the same, which is good. So that, I mean, I don't think it's a detriment to us, but we were lucky to be able to run the U16A and U19A provincials and be very successful with that. I think that was kind of a blessing in disguise. We got some cash flow in there, so I think that definitely helps us going through a year where we potentially aren't going to have our money-making tournament.
Yeah, for us, not having our full-on outdoor season definitely took a bit of a hit. We were fortunate again to be able to go out and have somewhat of a season. So what we did actually, we lowered our registration fees. So we ran the same programming in outdoor this summer, but we actually lowered the fees because we knew our members are also being hurt by this, right? They're losing their jobs or having to collect CERB and so on. So the money isn't coming in for them either. So we thought, how can we help the community? We're in a good financial position. So we lowered actually our registration fee and still were able to offer, and we had added costs, of course, with PPE and so on, and the government grants helped for sure. And, again, government programs like the CWS for the employees and so on. So that helped us. So in terms of, we took a bit of a hit, but we also wanted to make sure we were running for the members, right? So, going forward though, again, seeing the strong numbers for indoor, if we can keep running, we'd be okay. Again, I don't think it's going to hurt us, if we can keep operating like this and hopefully there's no setbacks with COVID, we should be fine for a while. Yeah.
Excellent. Greg, would you like to make a statement in that regard?
Yeah, I think if there's only one wave that I think we will be able to pull through as an organization with the Mavericks, a second wave and a second season shutdown, and those are some of the conversations that are being had already about next summer on percentages of fans and that sort of thing being let in facilities. So, we're treading water like everybody else. There's a small business closing every month. So, we're not going to complain here. I'm still able to get out and work with the kids. And, the camp side of it is a very small part of our baseball operating revenues. So we really do need to get back on the field and play summer collegiate baseball. But, May 25th is a long ways away, but we probably would have never thought we'd be sitting here at this point still talking about COVID as it is either. So I think, best advice I can give is plan for the return and plan, when is that tournament going to be? Try to time it, whether it's 6 months or 10 months out or next year, and just try to see the light or the silver lining on this stuff, that once the cloud does dissipate, which it will, whether it's 6 months or another 18 months, as a community, I think with such great facilities that we have across many sports, that Medicine Hat can be known as, we were ready and we have these great facilities. And, 2021's coming pretty quick, but let's all try to lean on each other and see if we can have our best practices and great communication with the city and see if we can be ready for the return.
I think that's a great statement and probably a great one to end on, because it's a great segue into where we're going to be heading next. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists in-house here today. Robert, Jay, Chad. On Zoom, we've got Greg and Jason and Susan with Alberta Health, and as well the representatives from the City of Medicine Hat, Natalie and David as well. So one more time for our panelists here. Thank you very much for spending your time with us today. We are going to turn the microphone over to Kara Brake, who is going to take the stage to present on behalf of the Medicine Hat Sport and Event Council.
Perfect. Thank you, Trevor. And again, I want to thank our panel members today for all of the information that you guys shared. So I am really excited to share a project that we have been working on for about a year and a half now. Our council has been working this. Our committee members have been working on this. We've been working with the City of Medicine Hat. They've had employees working on this. And we're pretty proud of what we were able to create here. And so I am excited to officially announce the launch tonight of our Uh-oh. I hate oh, maybe I have to turn it on. There we go, of our facility guide. So this is over 100 pages. We've got a combination of venues, hotels, schools, pools, anything you can think of in our city that can host an event, that you can have an event in, is in this guide. It's a one-stop shop. We know that to host an event, to bid to host an event, a significant amount of work goes into bringing all that information together to find all the information that you need, the specs for the facility, photos for the facility, all those kind of things, how many hotels we have, that kind of stuff. And so what we were able to do is put together a one-stop shop document that provides all of this information that our community can use. It's also a great document for our national and provincial sport organizations. When they're looking for a host community, this document is really going to set us apart. It's going to be a place where they can come and see really what Medicine Hat has to offer. So we're really excited about this document. I'm going to dive into a little bit of what the document looks like. There we go. So this is just an example of one of the pages. Like I said, it is filled with venues. So we've got everything from sport venues to cultural to community venues that you'll see in here. So this is just one example. This is the FLC here. And then I'll shoot over to another one. I don't even know if I'm doing this or if it's the Medicine Hat College. So this is again an example of one of our schools, all of our schools that have places that you can host an event in. So if it's a gymnasium, a theater, something like that, our schools are in here as well. As you can see, it lists the features of the venue. It's got what the venue can host, and then some other information. I'm going to say next slide because I don't think this is working. Here's what one of the hotel pages looks like. So you're going to see all of the hotels and motels in Medicine Hat, and there's probably more than you even knew we had. You'll see how many rooms there are, accessible rooms. We know that that's important to make sure that our sports and events are accessible. If they offer complimentary breakfast, some of the amenities they have, and how big their banquet and meeting rooms are. Next slide. So our facility guide, we know that this is going to be a living document. We know that things change regularly, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't having to print this document a couple times a year, especially with how big it is. So it's primarily going to live online. We will have a few printed copies, but this is where you can find it. We will post this on our social media, our website. It'll be everywhere. We are sending out a press release as well tonight to the media, so we're hoping that they pick it up as well. But it is on flipping books. So this acts like a real-life magazine, kind of, but this is what the page looks like. Next slide. This is what you'll see. Again, 2 venues. You'll see a large picture on each. We worked with local photographer Randy Fury. I know that he was here. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he has done a tremendous job taking pictures for us of all of our facilities, and there's lots of pictures. So it really gives us a good example of what our facilities have to offer. If you click on the main picture or the arrow in the side, that shows you exactly what the pictures are. It'll take you to an album, a full gallery of the pictures. And I think next slide. So this is what the gallery looks like. And so it'll take you to a SmugMug account, and you will be able to see all of the pictures of the facilities that Randy has taken pictures of. If you are bidding on an event and you need some of them, it won't let you download them, but we are happy to share them for bid documents or anything that you're doing. So please reach out to us and let us know if you need pictures, because we have them and we're ready to use them and excited to use them. Next slide. This is just another example of what our SmugMug account looks like. So it's got all of the galleries you can see. Like I said, it's not just our sport events. We often, with the Medicine Hat Sport and Event Council, we often talk about sports, but it's more than just sports. It's our conferences, it's our meetings, it's cultural events that take place here, Jazz Fest, Folk Fest. We've got so many things that we do here in Medicine Hat. So you'll see the beverage building as an example there, or the Canalta Center, where we can host a multiple amount of events or variety of events. Next slide. The facility guide will also have a link where people can click on it and it will take you directly to the address of that facility. So this is a fully digital document. We wanted people to be able to see where the soccer fields were, where the hotels were, things like that. And so we have it linked to Google Maps. And then it also links to the website. So we had one of the Moose Complex up there, and so at the bottom there is a website. If you click that, it will take you to the website for that facility. So whether it's a city facility or a private facility, we do have the website connected as well. And then lastly, the social media sites as well. So like I said, it's a fully digital document. It's exciting. We've got it linked to everything we can, phone numbers, contact information, everything you need to host an event at that facility is there for you. So we are very excited to showcase this document. I want to thank everybody that has worked on it with us. It's been a huge undertaking. We are excited. We do feel that this document is going to put us one step above a lot of other communities in hosting events and a good tool for our organizations to use. I'm looking at these guys because I'm like, hey, let's host more events when we can. But yeah, so thank you again to everybody. Like I said, we will have this on our website, social media, hoping that local media will be able to share it as well. And so yeah, hopefully you can take a look at it when you get home. Thank you.
And yes, a spectacular document. Are you willing to take any questions on it, Kara? Does anybody have any questions about the document? Maybe how they can access it, where they can share it, anything like that? I think you covered a lot of it. Looks pretty good. Excellent. One more time again for the Sport Event Council for this wonderful scenario. This wraps up the formal part of our evening. Just want to do a couple of things if I can. First of all, if any MHSEC council directors or committee members are in the building right now, please stand up. Just give a wave so we can see who you are. Yes, excellent. Make yourselves known to them. If you have a chance or direct any questions, I'm sure they would be helpful. They're very passionate about our community. We also want to remind you that when you leave today, follow the guidelines set out by the Esplanade. Make sure you follow the markings on the floors, use the sanitization stations, and the appropriate entrance and exits. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the rest of your night.